Welcome to Doc Talks. I'm Will Coghill-Behrends, and I'm joined today by Dr. Liz Hollingworth of EPLS to talk about making the most of grad school. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you, Will.
Liz, talk to me about grad school, about your experience in grad school, and about what you did to make the most of your experience.
Well, I would say that the most important thing that I try to tell all of my students is to figure out what your area of expertise is early on in your career. So as you're taking classes and you start discovering things that are interesting to you, make that the focus. So if you decide that you're really interested in, say, No Child Left Behind, then every time you're given the opportunity in a class to investigate something further as a project, I would recommend that you just keep always choosing No Child Left Behind, so that by the time you're finished with your graduate school studies, you are an expert. Not only that, but all the papers that you've written can serve as a foundation for your Chapter 2 for your dissertation, which is a lit review.
But how does somebody know that the project that they've chosen or the topic that they're passionate about is even worthwhile in academia?
That's a really good question, Will. And in fact, oftentimes what happens is students will choose 3 or 4 different topics before hitting on one that actually has some meat to it. A lot of the times what students will do is they'll make appointments in office hours with their professors to sort of vet their ideas, see what else is being written about it. And then a lot of times what happens is that those course papers get submitted to conferences, national conferences about education topics. And then you get a chance to share your ideas with professors from all across the country who will help you mold it into an actual project people will want to hear.
Excellent. You just touched on something that I think is really important, the topic of mentoring. How should students most effectively or perhaps appropriately pursue a quality mentor?
Well, everyone is assigned a mentor. When you come into the University of Iowa, everybody is given a professor who is considered your advisor. I would recommend that you take classes from that person. Somebody somewhere thought that your interests matched that professor's. Now, everybody changes over time. Perhaps the research that that professor is doing really isn't as interesting as you thought, or maybe there's another professor who's doing something that is much more compelling to you that had never crossed your mind before. So my recommendation is, as you're taking classes, meet the professors, spend time with them, volunteer in their research projects, and see if some of the things that they're doing you can get involved with.
Mm-hmm. What about mentors outside of their own academic department or academy? Is it worthwhile or advantageous for folks to pursue mentors outside of their discipline, their area?
Absolutely, and especially in your doctoral work. Your 5th area, the place where you do your cognate work, is considered to be outside of your immediate department. So what I would recommend every student do is find somebody early on in their studies who is doing something similar but outside of their department. Mm-hmm. So for example, for me, I was really interested in children's literature. So one of the things I did was I started taking classes at the School of Library and Information Sciences. And then that professor, who I took 2 classes from actually, she ended up being the 5th person on my dissertation and my committee.
Excellent. What would you say is probably the thing that most grad students forget or fail to do as they move through their program and into their dissertation and onto the job market?
That is such a good question. I can tell you the biggest problem is being prepared to conduct independent research. Part of what happens, I think, is we as teachers, we go back to graduate school, we start taking classes, we're very good at being students. And as soon as the comprehensive exam process is over, you're considered to be an independent scholar and an independent researcher. So the expectation, I think, sometimes some of our students have that they are still being taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. We're there to help you through your independent research progress, but we're not going to give you deadlines. We're not going to tell you when things are due. You're going to turn in a prospectus and you're going to have to give me a few weeks to read it. It's not like I'm going to have it read the next day and your first draft might not work. Yeah. We might have to keep going back to the drawing board.
Right. Time management is something that lots of students struggle with. Mm-hmm. Any tips on time management or organizational skills?
Well, I think for those of us who have small children, we get very good at compartmentalizing our time. And I would love for everybody to learn how to do that. So consider your day in chunks. So for those of us who have school-age children, I consider the time from 8 to 3 to be work time on weekdays. On the weekends, I look at when my daughter's got activities, and those are the times when I work. So whenever, it's sort of like when they're babies, whenever
Sure.
they sleep, you sleep. Whenever
Mm-hmm.
she's in school, I'm in school. Aside from that, creating a deadline starting from the end of when you want to be finished. So if, for example, you're finished with your comprehensive exams in the spring and you're getting ready to do your prospectus, plan that whole summer to write it out, plan on presenting it to your committee in the fall, early fall, have that whole next year be when you're writing it, and then plan on graduating in May. But you have to make those deadlines for yourself. Don't expect a professor to take care of you with that.
Right, but a faculty member could take a look at your proposed schedule and say, realistic, completely off base.
Right, and actually, and in fact, some of my students have taken really high-powered jobs right after their prospectus meetings. And I've said to them, the odds of you being able to finish your dissertation now have just plummeted because you are going to be so busy running this school. I don't know when you're going to be gathering your data and writing up your dissertation. So those sorts of conversations are very valuable.
Sure. Academics are expected to know how to teach,
yes,
to know how to conduct, as you say, independent research. What are some other perhaps less commonly thought of but still critically important skills that we need to have here in the Academy?
That's good. The third area is service.
So Liz, given the state of the economy and the fact that academe institutions like ours are in a tremendous state of transformation given the social, cultural, even political demands of the day, what additional skills should young academics seek to hone as they're here, while they're here?
Okay, so there's two big things I would say. Every student should make sure that she walks out of here knowing some technology, and not just, you know, can you do your email? I mean, you need to be, oh no, exactly. You need to be proficient. Realize that the high schoolers are coming out of art classes knowing how to use Adobe Photoshop as something fun they learned in 2 days on the side, right? And so for you to not have those same competencies makes it impossible for you to be able to teach them. So that would be the first thing. The second, I would say, is knowing that our demographics are changing, especially in Iowa. Being able to speak another language is really important, and not just Spanish. There are different languages being spoken all over the state. And when small school districts are looking for people who have special skills, one of those special skills they're looking for is the ability to speak a language other than English.
Yeah, and to understand that cultural competence
Absolutely.
and context. Good. Liz, any capstone advice for grad students, whether they're first-year grad students or at the dissertation level?
The best advice is some advice that my friend Tiffany gave me, and that is get what you came for. You came here to get your degree, finish it off.
Thank you so much, Liz,
Thank
for joining
you,
us
Will.
today.